Hey everyone, and welcome to a deep dive into Sweden's pretty ambitious plans for a fossil-free future.
Yeah.
We're talking net zero emissions by 2045.
Mm-hmm.
That's 5 years ahead of the EU's target.
That's right.
Sweden already has a pretty clean energy system, mostly powered by hydro and bioenergy.
Mm-hmm.
But how do they plan to take it to the next level?
Right.
Well, we've got a ton of reports and plans to go through.
We do.
Including a look at Sweden's this green steel revolution everyone's talking about.
Yeah.
So we're going to break down how they plan to electrify pretty much everything.
Right.
Where all that clean power is coming from. And most importantly, can they actually pull this off at such a fast pace?
Yeah, it's really interesting because they're aiming for an 85% reduction in domestic emissions while offsetting the remaining 15% through international initiatives.
Interesting.
So the separation of domestic efforts from offsets, adds a layer of transparency and accountability that a lot of other countries could learn from.
Yeah, it definitely makes you think about the ripple effects of a strategy like that.
Yeah.
What if every country adopted this approach? Would it speed up global emissions reductions, or would it just shift the burden around?
It's a tough question. It's a complex with no easy answers.
Right.
On one hand, it could encourage countries to focus on deep decarbonization within their own borders, which is really important for reaching global net zero.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's that risk that richer nations could just buy their way out of making tough changes domestically.
Yeah.
And that would perpetuate global inequalities.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So yeah, Sweden's experiment will be an interesting one to watch over the next few years.
For sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of interesting experiments, let's look at the core of Sweden's plan.
Okay.
Electrifying almost everything.
Yeah.
They're already starting with a relatively clean electricity mix.
Right.
Hydro, nuclear, wind.
Mm-hmm.
But to electrify cars, industries, heating, everything, they're going to need a lot more power.
Yeah, a lot more.
I mean, think about the scale of change we're talking about.
It's mind-boggling.
Right.
The Swedish Energy Agency estimates that electricity demand could more than double by 2045.
Wow.
Yeah, just imagine how that'll change our daily lives. Everything from how we cook and commute to how industries operate will be transformed.
Right.
It'll require a huge build-out of not just generation capacity, but also the entire electricity grid.
So let's break down these power sources a little bit.
Okay.
Hydropower has been reliable for Sweden, but can they squeeze even more out of those dams?
Well, hydropower is definitely reliable.
Yeah.
But expanding it faces some big hurdles.
Like what?
Well, environmental regulations are really strict.
Okay.
And it's getting harder to find suitable locations for new dams that won't harm the environment.
Makes sense.
There's potential in making existing plants more efficient.
Okay.
And exploring pumped hydro storage, which is like a giant battery for the grid. But even with all that, hydropower alone won't be enough to meet the increasing demand.
So where do they go next?
Yeah.
Nuclear.
Yeah.
I know that's been a controversial topic in a lot of countries.
Yeah.
Sweden included.
But nuclear is back in the spotlight
Okay.
with the current government really pushing for its future.
Okay.
Their plan calls for 10 new reactors by 2045.
Wow.
Starting with 2.5 gigawatts of new capacity by 2035.
That's a lot.
They're even offering 400 billion Swedish krona in loan guarantees to get things going.
That's a serious amount of money.
It is.
But are 10 new reactors even realistic in that time frame?
That's the big question.
Right.
Building nuclear plants is super complex and time-consuming.
Yeah.
Not to mention expensive.
So true.
The high upfront costs and long construction timelines are huge hurdles.
Yeah.
And there are still worries about safety and waste disposal issues that cause a lot of debate.
Yeah, absolutely.
It remains to be seen whether Sweden can overcome these challenges and actually meet their nuclear goals.
It'll be fascinating to see.
Yeah, it'll be a test of their political will and also their technological capabilities.
And let's not forget about the classic not in my backyard concerns that always come up with big infrastructure projects.
Absolutely. Public acceptance is going to be key for this nuclear expansion plan to succeed. The government needs to be transparent and really focus on safety and community engagement to build trust and address people's concerns.
Yeah, it's not just about building the plants.
Right.
It's about building consensus.
Exactly.
All right, so hydropower might be hitting its limits. Nuclear has its own set of challenges.
Yeah.
What about wind power?
Okay.
Sweden's already a wind energy leader.
Yeah, they are.
Right. Can't they just put up more turbines and be done with it?
Well, while Sweden has embraced wind power, there are some headwinds, so to speak.
Oh.
Even though wind energy is cost competitive, they're facing that age-old challenge of NIMBYism.
Right. NIMBYism, not in my backyard.
Yeah. Permitting issues are slowing things down.
Okay.
Especially at the local level.
Yeah, the classic battle between national goals and local interests.
Municipalities have a big say in where wind projects can go.
Right.
And they often face pressure from residents who are worried about how it'll look, the noise, or the impact on wildlife.
Sure.
It's a tough balancing act, weighing the need for clean energy against the concerns of local communities.
So how is Sweden dealing with this tension?
They're trying different models for community engagement and benefit sharing.
Like what?
Well, one idea is to create community benefit funds where wind farm developers contribute a certain amount per megawatt hour of electricity they produce to support local projects or initiatives.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This can help communities see wind power as a source of local income and development.
Yeah, that's a really creative way to find some common ground.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked hydro, nuclear, wind.
Right.
What about solar power? Does Sweden get enough sun for that to be a major part of their energy mix?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
While solar has huge potential globally, Sweden's location poses some challenges.
I can imagine.
Those long, dark winters when energy demand is highest don't exactly go hand in hand with lots of sunshine.
Right.
But that doesn't mean solar is completely out of the picture.
So it's not as simple as just putting up panels and letting the sun do its thing.
Not quite.
Okay.
To make solar work in Sweden,
yeah,
they'll need to use innovative solutions.
Like what?
Like large-scale solar farms paired with battery storage.
Okay.
This would let them store energy during the summer, reuse during the winter when it's needed.
So battery tech is going to be really important to make solar more reliable in their mix.
Definitely. And there's another interesting trend.
What's that?
Rooftop solar is getting more popular.
Okay.
Partly because of tax hikes.
Oh, wow.
The energy crisis in 2023, with those sky-high electricity prices, really pushed people to look at home solar as a way to save money on their bills.
Makes sense.
And be more in control of their energy.
It's interesting how crises can really push for change, getting people to try new solutions.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've got hydro, nuclear, wind, and now solar in the mix.
Right.
Sounds like Sweden is trying everything to boost their clean energy generation.
Yeah.
But can their electricity grid actually keep up with this rapid transformation?
That brings us to a really important and often overlooked part of the energy transition.
What's that?
Grid capacity.
Okay.
Sweden is facing a potential gridlock situation.
Uh-oh.
And this has implications beyond their borders.
Gridlock, what do you mean by that?
Think of it this way.
Okay.
Sweden's south, where most people live and industries are, is facing a growing power shortage.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the north, with all its hydro and wind power, has a surplus.
Okay.
But getting that clean energy from the north to the south is a big bottleneck.
So it's not just about making enough clean energy.
Right.
It's about getting it to the right places at the right time.
Exactly.
Sounds like a logistical nightmare.
It's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
The existing transmission lines just can't handle the increased flow of electricity that will be needed as Sweden electrifies.
So what's the solution? Just build more transmission lines.
Well, it sounds simple.
Yeah.
But it's not that easy.
Why not?
The process for planning and approving new transmission lines in Sweden is very slow and complex.
Oh boy, bureaucracy.
Yeah, it can take years.
Wow.
Sometimes even a decade or more.
Really?
To get through all the regulations and permits.
That's a long time.
It is.
So it sounds like they need to streamline that process.
Yeah.
But without compromising on environmental protection.
Right.
And community engagement.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
Some experts think Sweden needs to be more strategic.
Okay.
Take a more system-level approach to grid planning. Maybe move away from the purely market-driven model they've been using.
Okay.
This would mean more coordination between the government, energy providers, and regional authorities to make sure that grid expansion aligns with the overall energy transition goals.
It's amazing how these technical issues can get so tangled up in politics and regulations.
It is.
It really shows that the energy transition is about more than just building new power plants and transmission lines. It's about changing entire systems and ways of thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
And that brings us to another really interesting part of Sweden's journey.
Okay.
The rise of green steel.
This is where Sweden's industrial ingenuity and commitment to sustainability really stand out.
Okay, so let's unpack this green steel revolution.
Okay.
I've heard the term, but I'm not really sure what it means.
Well, to understand green steel, you need to remember that industry, especially heavy industry, is a major source of emissions globally. And Sweden's industry alone accounts for a big chunk of their total emissions.
Okay.
One of the biggest culprits is steel production.
So how do you make steel green?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And Sweden is at the forefront of developing new solutions.
Right.
The key is to replace fossil fuels, which are traditionally used to heat and reduce iron ore in steelmaking, with a cleaner alternative, hydrogen.
So instead of coal-powered furnaces, they're using hydrogen-powered ones.
Exactly.
And this isn't just some futuristic idea.
Right.
It's actually happening.
It's happening right now.
Wow.
Companies like Hybrid and H2 Green Steel are pioneering these technologies to produce fossil-free steel using hydrogen.
That's amazing.
It could be a turning point for the global steel industry.
This sounds like a game changer.
Yeah.
What are the implications of this? Why should we care?
The implications are huge. If Sweden can show that green steel production can work on a large scale, it could have a ripple effect across industries and countries.
Wow.
Imagine a world where the steel in our buildings, cars, and infrastructure is made without releasing harmful greenhouse gases.
That would be a huge step towards decarbonizing the global economy.
It would.
But hold on.
Yeah.
We were just talking about the challenges of generating enough clean electricity for all of Sweden's needs.
Right.
How can they possibly produce enough to power both their industries and everyday life, especially with energy-intensive things like steelmaking?
That's the key question.
Yeah.
And it shows how interconnected everything is in the energy transition. To make their green steel ambitions a reality, Sweden will need to massively scale up its clean energy production and make sure its grid can handle the extra demand.
So these two things are now inseparable.
Absolutely.
Green steel is a fascinating example of how Sweden's industrial ambitions are driving its energy transition and vice versa.
Exactly.
And it also brings up some questions about hydrogen's role in their overall energy strategy.
Right.
They have guidelines for hydrogen development.
They do.
But there's no concrete hydrogen strategy in place.
Not yet.
Can they really achieve these green goals without a clear roadmap for hydrogen?
That's a good question.
We've covered a lot.
Yeah, we have.
From their climate targets and plans for electrifying their economy to the rise of green steel and the challenges with grid capacity.
It's been a good overview.
But before we move on, I'm curious about something else.
What's that?
How is all of this affecting the everyday lives of people in Sweden?
Yeah.
Are they on board with this huge change?
That's a question that often gets missed in all the talk about tech and innovation.
Right.
The truth is these large-scale transitions require not just new tech, but also social adaptation and acceptance.
So are people embracing the shift to a fossil-free future?
Well, Sweden has a long history of being environmentally conscious, and there's generally strong support for climate action.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean everyone's happy with every part of the transition.
Sure.
There are concerns about how fast things are moving,
Okay.
the potential economic impact, and how it'll affect different communities and regions.
Makes sense.
Change can be unsettling, especially when it involves something as fundamental as energy.
It touches everything.
Right. It affects every aspect of our lives.
Absolutely.
It's crucial that the government and policymakers listen to these concerns and explain the benefits of the transition clearly and address any potential inequalities or negative impacts.
Right.
It's not enough to just come up with technical solutions. They need to bring people along on this journey.
It sounds like Sweden's energy transition is this mix of technological innovation, political will, social adaptation, and a whole lot of complexity.
It is.
They're definitely pushing the limits of what's possible.
Yeah.
But they're also navigating uncharted waters.
They are.
It'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
It will.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on their progress over the next few years.
Definitely.
Their experience has a lot of valuable lessons for the rest of the world.
Yeah.
As we deal with our own transitions to a more sustainable future.
Absolutely.
We'll be right back after a short break.
So we're back digging deeper into Sweden's journey towards a fossil-free future.
Yeah.
Before the break, we were talking about the human side of their energy transition.
Absolutely. It's easy to get lost in the technical details, but at the end of the day, it's people whose lives are being affected by these changes.
Exactly. And one area where that human element really stands out is transportation.
Transportation, okay.
It's actually Sweden's biggest source of emissions right now. It accounts for a significant portion, about 43%.
Wow, 43%?
43% of their energy-related CO2 emissions.
That's a big chunk.
It is.
But wait, I thought Sweden was a leader in electric vehicles and biofuels.
Yeah.
Haven't they made a lot of progress in greening their transportation sector?
They've made significant strides.
Okay.
In 2023, 60% of all new cars sold in Sweden were electric.
Wow, 60%. That's impressive.
It is, and they've historically had a high share of biofuels in their transport fuel mix.
Okay.
Thanks to their biofuels mandate.
So if they're already doing so well,
yeah,
why is transportation still their biggest emissions source?
Well, there's been a bit of a policy shift in recent years, in 2023, to try and ease the pain of high fuel prices during the energy crisis.
Right.
They significantly cut the biofuels mandate and reduced diesel taxes.
So a short-term fix for economic pressures, but potentially at the cost of long-term environmental goals.
Exactly. While these moves did help lower prices at the pump, they've also made it tougher to reach their target of a 70% reduction in transport emissions by 2030.
It's that classic balancing act for policymakers.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Trying to balance competing priorities and immediate needs with long-term sustainability goals.
It is a delicate balance.
Yeah.
And it shows how important it is to think about the unintended consequences of policy decisions. Sometimes what seems like a good idea in the short term can create roadblocks later on.
So what's the plan going forward?
Right.
Are they just relying on electric vehicles to decarbonize transportation now?
Electric vehicles are a crucial part of the strategy, and they're seeing strong growth. Even though the government has phased out direct financial incentives for EV purchases.
Really? That seems a bit counterintuitive.
Yeah, it might seem that way.
If they're so committed to electrifying transportation, why remove incentives that encourage people to buy EVs?
It's about changing priorities and adapting to how the market is changing. The government felt that the incentives had done their job in jumpstarting the EV market. And with EVs becoming more common and prices coming down, they decided to shift their focus and resources to other areas, like charging infrastructure.
Okay, so they're taking a more holistic approach.
Exactly.
Recognizing that it's not just about getting people to buy EVs.
Right.
It's about creating a whole system that supports widespread EV adoption.
It's about the whole ecosystem, building the infrastructure, addressing range anxiety.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And making sure charging is convenient and accessible for everyone.
So how are they doing on that front?
Yeah.
Do they have enough charging stations to keep up with all the electric cars on the road?
They're making good progress. The number of public charging stations in Sweden increased a lot in 2023.
Okay, how much?
A 96% increase compared to the previous year.
Wow, 96%, that's huge.
And a good chunk of those are fast charging stations, which can charge cars much quicker.
That's good.
Yeah.
What does that mean in terms of actual coverage?
Right.
Are charging stations easy to find in both cities and rural areas?
That's a key question. Yeah.
While the overall number of stations is impressive, there are still differences in coverage depending on where you are.
Okay.
Urban areas, especially big cities, tend to have more charging stations, while rural areas are lagging behind.
Makes sense.
This is something a lot of countries are facing as they transition to EVs.
Yeah, it's logical to prioritize urban areas with more people and cars.
Right.
But to really get everyone using EVs, they need to make sure charging is accessible everywhere.
Absolutely.
So are they working on that?
They are.
Okay.
They have this program called Climate Leap.
Okay.
Specifically focused on expanding charging infrastructure.
Okay.
Particularly in rural areas.
Good.
And along major highways.
That makes sense.
And there are tax breaks for installing charging stations at homes and workplaces.
Okay.
Which helps build out a more decentralized charging network.
Sounds like they're really trying to cover all their bases.
Yeah.
But what about those biofuels we talked about earlier?
Did they completely give up on that strategy after reducing the mandate?
Not completely. Actually, they increased the blending mandate from 6% to 10% for both gasoline and diesel starting in 2025.
Wow, interesting.
And here's the really interesting part. That 10% quota can also be met using electricity.
Wait, electricity and fuel?
Yeah.
How does that work?
It's a pretty innovative approach.
Okay.
It likely means they're using renewable electricity to produce alternative fuels, like hydrogen or synthetic fuels. These fuels can then be blended with regular gasoline or diesel, which reduces the overall carbon footprint of transportation.
So it's a way to indirectly electrify the fuel supply.
Exactly.
Even for vehicles that aren't fully electric.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty clever.
It is. Yeah. It shows that they're realizing there's no single solution to decarbonizing transportation.
Right.
They're exploring different options and adapting as technologies change.
So it's a mix of electric vehicles, sustainable fuels, and a continued focus on building that charging infrastructure.
It is.
Sounds like a multi-pronged approach to tackling those transportation emissions.
Exactly.
A strategy that acknowledges how complex the challenge is and the need for flexibility and innovation.
Yeah.
Okay, we've covered a lot on transportation.
Yeah.
But we can't forget about the places we spend most of our time, our homes and buildings.
That's a crucial part.
How does Sweden's energy transition play out in those spaces?
Well, while buildings in Sweden already have relatively low emissions compared to other countries, they still use a significant amount of energy.
Why is that?
Yeah.
I thought Sweden was known for its energy efficiency and sustainable building practices.
They are.
Okay.
But historically, their abundance of clean and relatively cheap electricity hasn't really pushed people to prioritize energy efficiency in buildings as much as in countries with higher energy costs or a bigger reliance on fossil fuels.
Makes sense. It's kind of like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, exactly.
But as they electrify other sectors, the demand for electricity is going to go up.
Right.
Making energy efficiency in buildings even more important.
Yeah, it's going to be critical.
It sounds like they need a bit of a mindset shift.
Yeah.
From cheap and clean to use less, period.
Exactly. And they're starting to move in that direction.
Okay.
They have building regulations, energy performance certificates for buildings, and various support schemes to help homeowners switch from fossil fuel heating systems.
So what are some specific things they're doing to boost energy efficiency in buildings?
Well, they have a long-term renovation strategy aimed at reducing energy consumption in existing buildings.
Okay.
This involves encouraging upgrades to more energy-efficient standards, improving insulation, and promoting energy-saving appliances and technologies. Their goal is to almost completely eliminate fossil fuels in buildings by 2040.
That's ambitious.
It is a pretty aggressive timeline.
How are they planning to achieve that?
They have a variety of policy tools.
Like what?
Building codes, energy audits, financial incentives for renovations, and educational programs to raise awareness about energy efficiency.
So it's a multifaceted approach, combining regulations, incentives, and education.
Exactly.
But is it enough? Will they be able to meet those stricter EU energy efficiency targets that are coming?
That remains to be seen.
Okay.
The new EU Energy Efficiency Directive has set higher targets for energy savings.
Okay.
And Sweden will need to figure out if their current policies and programs are enough to meet those goals.
So potentially more work to be done there.
Yeah, potentially.
Now let's talk about something that's unique to Sweden.
Okay.
And often piques the curiosity of people outside the country.
What's that?
District heating.
Okay.
It's a big deal there, right?
It is a very big deal.
Okay.
District heat, which uses a network of pipes to distribute heat from a central source to multiple buildings, provides a whopping 36% of the energy used in homes.
Wow, 36%.
That's the second largest share after Denmark, according to the IEA.
That's significant.
It is.
What are they using to fuel those district heating systems?
Right.
Are they still relying on fossil fuels, or have they found more sustainable alternatives?
They've done a great job of integrating their forestry resources into their district heating systems.
Okay, how so?
About 50% of district heating is produced in these plants, called combined heat and power plants, which are mainly fueled by bioenergy, things like wood waste and biomass.
So they're turning waste products into a valuable energy source.
Exactly. It's a great example of circularity.
Yeah.
And the carbon pricing on fossil fuels makes bioenergy a really good option economically.
Right.
Plus, district heating is just a very efficient way to deliver heat.
How so?
It minimizes heat loss compared to having individual heating systems in each building.
So it's sustainable, efficient, and cost-effective.
Yeah, it's a win-win-win.
But you mentioned earlier that there have been some debates about pricing in the district heating market.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Well, the market was liberalized back in 1996.
Okay.
But recent price increases because of the energy crisis have raised concerns about potential monopoly pricing by district heating providers.
So some people are worried they're being overcharged.
Right. Yeah.
Especially in areas with limited competition.
Exactly.
It's that classic issue of deregulation potentially leading to market distortions and concerns about consumer protection.
It's a challenge a lot of countries face as they liberalize their energy markets. Yeah. The government has to find that balance between encouraging competition and ensuring fair and transparent pricing.
It's a reminder that market-based solutions aren't always perfect. And that we need careful regulation and oversight.
We do.
To prevent unintended consequences.
Right.
And in the case of district heating, the stakes are high.
They are.
Because it plays such a vital role in providing affordable and reliable heat to so many people.
If people lose trust in the system or feel like they're being treated unfairly, they might switch to less efficient or more polluting heating options.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
And that would go against the goals of the energy transition.
So it's not just about the technology.
Right.
It's about the economics, the social dynamics.
Yeah.
And the need for policies that ensure fairness and affordability.
Absolutely.
Sweden's energy transition is really a fascinating case study.
Yeah.
And how to navigate these complex interconnections.
It brings up important questions about how to manage these transitions in a way that benefits everyone.
Right.
Not just those who can afford new tech.
Yeah.
Or live in areas with easy access to clean energy.
It's a reminder that the energy transition is a social and political project as much as it is a technological one.
Absolutely.
And it needs careful planning, thoughtful policies, and a commitment to leaving no one behind.
I agree.
Well, we've covered a lot.
We have.
In this deep dive into Sweden's energy transition.
Yeah.
Their ambitious climate goals, their innovative energy mix, the challenges with grid capacity, transportation emissions, and ensuring a fair and equitable transition for all.
It's been a good discussion.
But there's still more to explore.
There is.
In our final segment, we'll look at the economic implications of Sweden's energy transition.
Sounds good.
We'll examine the potential costs and benefits and the impact on their competitiveness in a globalized world.
I'm looking forward to it.
We're back for the final part of our deep dive into Sweden's bold energy transition.
Yeah.
We've explored their innovative solutions, the complexities of electrifying a whole society, and even how they're heating their homes sustainably.
It's been a good discussion.
It has.
Yeah.
But we can't forget about the economic side of things.
Of course not.
This kind of massive transformation can't happen without considering the costs.
Absolutely. The economic implications of Sweden's energy transition are significant, with potential impacts on their industries, their workforce, and their overall competitiveness globally.
So let's get right to it.
Okay.
Is this transition going to break the bank for Sweden, or are there potential economic benefits that could make it worth the investment?
Well, it's a bit of a balancing act.
Okay.
With both costs and benefits to consider. On the cost side, there's no doubt that Sweden is making big upfront investments in renewable energy infrastructure, grid upgrades, and research and development.
Makes sense.
These investments require a lot of public and private capital, which could put a strain on government budgets or impact the profitability of companies.
So there are definitely some short-term costs to consider.
Yeah.
But what about the long-term economic outlook?
You're right.
Are there potential gains that could outweigh those initial investments?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sweden's government and many economists believe that transitioning to a fossil-free economy will lead to long-term economic benefits.
Okay, I'm listening. What are some of those potential benefits?
Well, one key area is job creation.
Okay.
The transition to a green economy is expected to create new jobs.
Okay, where?
In sectors like renewable energy, energy efficiency, green technology manufacturing, and sustainable transportation.
So green jobs.
Exactly. These new jobs could offset potential job losses in traditional industries like fossil fuel extraction or combustion engine manufacturing.
So it's not just about environmental sustainability.
Right.
It's about economic sustainability, too.
Exactly. It's about creating new industries and new jobs.
Yeah, that's a powerful argument for the transition.
It is. And there are other potential benefits, too. Right.
Like reduced energy imports and increased energy independence.
Okay.
By relying more on renewable energy produced within Sweden, they can reduce their dependence on imported fossil fuels.
Makes sense.
Which are often subject to price swings and global instability.
Right. Especially in today's world where energy security is a big concern for a lot of countries.
Exactly. And then there's the potential for Sweden to become a global leader in green technologies.
Okay.
Exporting their expertise to other countries going through similar transitions.
So they're not just aiming to be a green economy. They want to be a green economic powerhouse.
Exactly. By investing in research and development, supporting green startups, and fostering innovation.
Okay.
Sweden wants to become a hub for clean technology.
That's ambitious.
Yeah, it is.
But it also seems like a smart strategy.
Yeah.
If they can pull this off, there could be significant economic rewards down the line.
Absolutely. But of course, there are challenges too. Like
one concern is the potential impact on energy prices.
Okay, how so?
As Sweden electrifies more of its economy, the demand for electricity will go up significantly, which could push prices higher.
Yeah, that makes sense. Classic supply and demand.
Exactly.
If demand outpaces supply, prices tend to rise.
They do.
It's important to manage this transition carefully to avoid things like sudden energy price spikes that could hurt consumers or make businesses less competitive.
Absolutely. And that's where the government's role is crucial.
Okay.
They need to put policies in place that encourage energy efficiency, promote innovation in energy storage and grid management, and ensure a smooth and affordable transition for everyone.
So it's not just about building new energy infrastructure. It's about creating a system that supports a sustainable and affordable energy future.
Exactly.
Okay, what other challenges are there?
Well, another challenge is potential job losses in traditional industries. As Sweden moves away from fossil fuels, jobs in sectors like oil and gas extraction or coal-fired power generation could be lost. The government needs to be proactive, addressing these potential job losses through things like retraining programs, support for new industries, and investment in regions that might be hit harder by the transition.
Yeah, it's about making sure no one is left behind in this process.
Absolutely. These economic transitions aren't just about numbers. They're about people's lives and livelihood.
It's about people.
Exactly. And this brings us to a broader point.
Okay.
The social and economic aspects of Sweden's energy transition are deeply connected. They need to be addressed together with policies that promote both sustainability and equity.
So it's not just about building a green economy. It's about building a fair and inclusive one.
Exactly. And Sweden's experience shows us that these transitions require a holistic approach, considering the environmental, economic, and social impacts of every decision.
Yeah, we've covered a lot in this deep dive into Sweden's energy future.
We have.
We've seen their ambition, their innovation, their willingness to challenge the status quo, and their understanding of the complexities involved in this massive transformation.
It's been a fascinating look at their journey.
It really has.
And their experience holds valuable lessons for the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
As we all try to figure out how to transition to a more sustainable future.
Their commitment to pushing the boundaries is really inspiring.
It is.
But as we've discussed, it's not a simple path.
There will be tough choices, trade-offs to make, and a constant need to adapt and innovate.
Exactly. And ultimately, the success of Sweden's energy transition will depend not just on their technology, but also on their ability to create a sense of unity, build a resilient economy, and share a vision for a sustainable future.
It's a collective effort.
It is.
Requiring collaboration, innovation, and a commitment to leaving no one behind.
And as we've seen in this deep dive, Sweden is really pushing the limits, showing the world what's possible when a nation sets its sights on a bold and transformative goal.
They're leading the way.
So as we wrap up this episode, a final thought for our listeners. What lessons can you take away from Sweden's experience?
That's a good question.
How can you apply these insights to your own understanding of the energy transition, whether it's in your community, your workplace, or even in your own life?
Sweden's story is a powerful reminder that change is possible.
Absolutely.
Even on a large scale.
It's a call to action. To think creatively, challenge assumptions, and embrace the possibilities of a cleaner, more sustainable future.
It's an exciting time.
It is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.